Welcome to the Life of Hair. My name is James Atkinson. Thank you for choosing to join in with this week's episode. Now, in this week's episode, we're going to look at one of those fantastic techniques. I have talked about it before, but it's such a winner in so many different scenarios. So today we're going to look at a different scenario and a different way of using the hand blended ribbon weave balayage technique that I've talked about in a previous video. There is so many ways of using this technique, adding back dimension, low lights, putting in brighter pieces simultaneously, or the way that we're going to use it today, which is just to create beautiful blended soft ribbons of blonde through what has become a very grown out head of brown hair. This particular episode is all about refreshing an extremely long regrowth, but more than that, it's about creating a technique that doesn't take an age to do. Because as you well know, some of these balayage techniques can take hours and hours and hours. But even on really long hair, like we've got in this particular video, the whole technique took about 45 to 50 minutes to apply. Obviously then there's processing time and toning, but the application time was under 50 minutes for sure. So I hope you enjoy this week's episode. If you do, then do me the favor of hitting the thumbs up button. It helps the videos immensely. The YouTube algorithm feeds off your interaction. Comment what's your favorite balayage technique. This is definitely one of mine. And don't forget, if you want to see more educational content each and every week, then hit the subscribe button. And every Wednesday night I go live either on my channel here, The Life of Hair, or on my good friend Paul Watts Hair channel. So hit the notification bell to ensure you get to join in with those lives. Until next time, guys, I'll see you very, very soon. Okay, so our starting point, as I mentioned, medium brown level 7, transitioning into some very old balayage, probably 2 or more years since I'd had my hands on this client's hair, for reasons that we won't keep going into, but you know what's happened. You know what's happened with the world recently. It's not been fun, but hey, look, here we are now, getting our hands back into our client's hair. So this technique, I'm just going to give you the breakdown, and then I'm going to really drill into each section as we go through. But effectively, we've taken a 1.5 inch parting through the hair horizontally all the way across. The pre-section is really simple, from the highest point of the head down to the back of the ears, and then split the front section into 2 using their natural parting. Very, very important. Wherever they're going to part the hair, that's where you split the top. So you've got 3 sections, 1, 2, and a big one in the back. Then we're going to take a deep ribbon weave section. We want a significant gap in between each of our sections. That's really, really important with this particular technique. We want to dig all the way through the section as well, and that will give us a kind of boxy little rectangular shape section to then apply the colour to. Now, you've already been watching me apply the colour, and you'll have seen that we've just gone straight in with our hands, applied it to the hair, saturated about 50% of the way down the hair fully, so we've got loads and loads of lightener onto that hair. And then we're going to use our hand to evenly distribute the product back up towards the root area. Now, there are some definite things to think about with this, but don't worry, we're going to go through each and every part of this technique as we go through the video, making sure that you try to fully grasp the technique before you go and give it a go yourself. So the blending of the product is super important in this particular instance. It's creating that super soft transition. Now, before we talk about the blending, each and every time you finish a section, make sure that you wipe your hands, have an old towel to hand or one that's already got bleach on it, so that you can ensure you're not getting product onto parts of the hair that you didn't mean to. So once we've taken our section, which we've already talked about, the weaving part, we then apply the product to the hair. Now, dependent on where you want the maximum amount of lightness to be, is where you then go in with your full saturation element of this technique. So in this particular instance, I want about 50% of the hair roughly to be full saturation, and then get maximum lightness in that particular area. Now, it could be a third in your instance, it could be further up towards the roots. But if you're going further up towards the roots, bear in mind you do need some area of which you can transition the lightener up towards the root area. So let's talk about that right now, because I'm doing it as you are watching. I am using ample pressure to distribute the product evenly and smoothly up towards the root area. But what I'm really conscious of is that I am not pushing the product too deep, too far into the section, because we do not want more saturation than just the surface when we are distributing the product evenly throughout our blending zone. Now, our blending zone is really important in this technique. It's the area of which there isn't a You can now see that I'm onto the side sections. Now, the side sections are obviously quite important. They're very visible to the client. Also want maximum blending in this area. So I will be using much finer weaves. Now, you'll note on this particular one, I'm not 100% happy with the weaves. What you do want to do, even though you're taking finer weaves, is you don't want it all to blur into one sort of mishmash slice weave. You want defined gaps in between each of the sections so that you can then distribute the product up towards the head. And once it's dried and styled, you will get those defined ribbons of lightness that you really are trying to create by using a ribbon weave balayage technique. You really want to see the blonde pieces stand out. Now, one of the big questions that I get all the time is what's the best balayage technique for curly hair? And for me personally, this is it, because it creates beautiful definition onto the curls. So if you've got curly haired clients and you want to put a balayage on them, then by all means go for it. One thing I will say is if you want extra lightness, then cover your sections with clean film, my preference. You can use foil, you can use meshes, but my preference, clean film. I know it can be a bit fiddly, but boy, it's easy to remove and you can get to see the color processing through. Now, this particular technique is obviously all around the blending. One thing to look for though, to get maximum lift from the root area all the way down to the tips, is that you evenly saturate the section. So as much as I'm going for half of the hair to be fully saturated, the second half of the hair back up towards the root area wants to be beautifully blended, but consistent and even coverage of product from those ends all the way back up to the root. Imagine like you're icing a cake. You want it to be consistent all the way. So when you're looking at your section and deciding whether you've done enough blending, just check to see if you can see any hair through the lightener. If you can see hair through the lightener, then you want to make sure that you need to put A, more lightener back onto the hair, and B, go back in and blend it more consistently. Once you get your head into this technique, guys, once you start understanding how this technique works, I know you'll be using it really regularly, because it is so simple. Even on really long hair like this, it has taken like I said, about 45 to 50 minutes to apply. On shorter hair, even faster. Now remember, we're working to the natural parting. This is the final section that I'm going to show you on this particular technique. So we're working to that natural parting. That's very important with lots of balayage techniques, not just this one. But if the client says, oh, I've flipped my hair around, well, I would then stick with one dominant parting and explain that it's not going to look exactly like that if they wear it in the other parting. That's just the nature of a balayage technique. So as you can see on the screen now, this is the finished result, and it's just created beautiful dimension, soft ribbons of lightness traveling up towards the root area, and a brighter, cleaner, fresher colour through the end. So in this particular instance, we used blue powder bleach with 10 volume and a bonder additive into the service, and then we toned it globally with 09NB natural beige, because there was no root stretching to be done. There's no kind of a need to cover up any demarcation. This technique, once you master it, blends itself away absolutely seamlessly. Honestly guys, once you understand the beauty and the simplicity of this technique, you will be absolutely loving it. But this result for me is just the ease of creating this particular result is what really pleases me about this overall technique. So many times you see amazing balayage pictures, but there's so many hours and hours and hours of technique gone into creating that, and this is just so incredibly simple. So I hope you get to use it. I hope you really want to work out how to make this technique work for you, and if you do, I would love to hear about it. So do stay in touch, and until next time guys, look after yourself, have a great week, and I'll see you very soon.